During this section, we're going to look at using one of the Dreamweaver templates, or perhaps should I call them one of the Dreamweaver layouts, that are provided to give us a head start when we want to build a website. Therefore, my intention during this section is to go through that process so that we understand what the actual process is when we construct a web page that looks like this, and then we can use those skills during the following sections whereby we'll develop our site by building further pages, but actually from scratch. So anyway, this is what we're looking at. This is what we're going to build during this section. I'm going to provide you with some work files whilst we're doing this, by the way, i.e. this photograph that runs across the top here, this header banner, and also some further photographs that we haven't seen as yet, but you might want to use when you are developing your site. And as and when we do use photographs or any text that I feel that you could cut and paste from a Word document to save you some time and then insert it into this page, well, those assets will be provided to you, and you'll find them in the relevant work files folders. That said, you won't find any just yet. You won't find any for this particular tutorial, only because I'm going through the process of starting up this site. And as I alluded to at the beginning of this tutorial, we'll be creating this site by using one of the Dreamweaver layouts. Consequently, if you follow this tutorial, you'll be generating your own work files, as it were, in exactly the same way as I generate them as I'm creating this. Anyway, let me just explain what we are going to create. As I say, we'll have this photograph across the top. We'll have this navigation running down here. This might not remain exactly like this. We might change this. Remember how I mentioned in the previous tutorial, we might have further pages for this site that are navigable via our menu, but relate to the history of the village. At the moment, we're going to leave that, but we will include this text down here under our latest news and employment and meetings. We'll have this large photograph, and we'll also, over here on our right, we'll have a calendar area, and what we're going to do is we're going to provide some links here, and we know they are links, by the way, when you roll your cursor over these months, and the cursor turns into that symbol there. It changes from that arrow into that hand symbol, indicating that these are links. And then if we move down our page, we'll include another photograph with some textual content here, and just above and below our main photograph, we'll introduce another menu area, acting as it is as a submenu that allows the user to navigate to different pages related to various shops within the village. And then right down here in our footer area, we'll have some further navigable links, although they aren't navigable at the moment. As we can tell, when we roll our mouse over, that arrow doesn't change to that hand symbol, but we will rectify this as we progress. Okay then, so that's what we're up against. That's what we're going to create. So I'll just move over to Dreamweaver, and therefore you'll notice over in our Files panel area, because we're starting this new site from scratch, then even though I've got my site defined, and remember how we've done this, do remind yourself if you're not sure from those earlier tutorials, well, once we have set up and defined our site, well, at the moment it's in this pristine state, in that we haven't created any files yet. Well, at the moment it's in this pristine state because I've gone ahead and deleted the files we created in the last chapter. If your site is still populated, please delete your files as well, so that it will be starting fresh to follow along. Therefore, without any further ado, let's get started. So, I'll come up here to my File menu and drop down to this second option, New. Remembering, of course, on your system, because you won't have the extra extensions made by this company Project 7, then of course my first option here won't appear on your system. So all you need to do is make sure you come down to New, which as I say should be the first option on your system. Anyway, once you do click on here, remember we see this new document dialog. And in my first column, I'll choose blank page, and then come across to my second column, the page type, and making sure I've got HTML selected, I can then move across to my layout column, and then I need to decide from these layout options which one I want to choose. Well, I don't want none, and I don't want the second option, this 2-column fixed option. It's this third one I want, 3-column fixed, header and footer. And you can see by our preview over here that, well, do you remember what I spoke about in the previous tutorial about wireframing, i.e. sketching out on a piece of paper just a very rough overview of what our site containers will look like? Well, no doubt you'll remember that my sketch looked remarkably similar to this, in that I've got a header area across the top, And if we refer back to what we saw at the beginning of this tutorial, in this header area at the top, that's where we're going to put that banner photograph. And then in those columns, the one on the left, that'll be where we see that latest news text and employment, etc. And in the column on the right, that's where we'll see that calendar area. And the main content area, this white section in the middle, this will hold our photographs and the main content text and that submenu. And then right across the bottom horizontally in this footer area, well, that's where we're going to provide those extra links. Although remember what we saw at the beginning of this tutorial, we hadn't quite made them links yet. Now I don't need to change my doc type from HTML5, that's what I want, and any layout CSS, I'm happy to add that at the moment to the head of our page. If I want to extract this and convert it into a separate CSS file, I can do that later. So as I say, I'm quite happy with this, so I'll simply come down here to the bottom right and click on Create. Okay, and that's us done. That's our first step when we want to utilize one of Dreamweaver's layout starter pages. Now at the moment, you'll notice our file is simply called Untitled. Mine is actually called Untitled 2, and that's simply because I opened this up just as a test prior to recording this tutorial for you. Yours will say Untitled 1. Regardless of what it is called here at the moment, Untitled 1 or Untitled 2, we don't really want it to be called this. We need it to be called index.html because that's the name that all web browsers recognize to be the opening page of any website. So I'll come up to File, I'll run down to Save, and then in my file name field down here, I'll remove Untitled 2 and then simply type in index. The .html remains. And then it's a simple process of coming over here to the bottom right and clicking on Save. But before I do, notice this button just to the left. It's labelled as Site Root. Well, at the moment, Dreamweaver recognises that this particular folder where I'm saving this index.html file into, and you'll see the path up here, well, I'm saving my file into this folder, TT Stockton Heath. On your system, you can call this whatever you like, so long as you remember where it is. Now, as I say, Dreamweaver does recognise that this is my site root folder. However, if I wanted to confirm this and just doubly make sure, then I would click on that button there, Site Root. As it is, I'm happy with this, so I will click on Save. And that's it, we're done. If we now look over in our Files panel, and within my website folder, we now see that this newly generated layout file has been given the name index.html. Now there is one more thing I want to do before we finish up for this tutorial, and that's to come up to this field here, where it says Title. At the moment you can see the title of my page is Untitled Document, and it's called Untitled irrespective of the fact that we've just changed our name into index.html. This title field doesn't relate or link, shall I say, to the actual name of my file. What this title field refers to is, well, do you know when you're looking at any website on the internet, once you type in the URL, you will also see a display name indicating what the site is. Well, whatever you fill in here, that's what that is. Now, some people just simply prefer to type in here the name of their website, i.e. Stockton Heath Village, or some people like to use this to try and help out their SEO, their search engine optimization, and type in a phrase that they think users will be using when they are searching for a site like this. So, for example, you might write in here, Stockton Heath Village, the best restaurants in Cheshire. Anyway, that's up to you. I'm going to remove this, so I'll highlight it, because I don't want it to be called Untitled Document, and then I'll simply type in Stockton Heath Village. I'm not too concerned at the moment with adding any extra text. I could always add it later on, should I want to. And because I've now made this change to my document, I need to save it once more, so I'll come up to File, and then again I'll roll down to Save. Okay, that's us done. We've now created our first page. Well, only in the sense that we've got our layout, there is quite a lot of work to do from here. So I'll finish up for the moment, and I'll see you in the following tutorial.